Good evening. Welcome to PoliticIt podcast. Tonight we have Carson Jorgensen. Carson, great to have you back.
Oh, glad to be back.
You put a lot of time into this race.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts coming out of this? Because I know you spent a significant amount of time, going around the state. What are some of the reflections you've had?
I think the biggest thing is the quality of people that we have in this state. We've been able to meet with a lot of people and talk to them, and we have some great people here. We do have our problems and we have our issues, but for the most part, our state is full of excellent people, and the experience has been great. It was just kind of a continuation as what I did as party chair, and was able to meet the needs and to be able to see what people needed and try to help them fix it. And we were talking about it, my wife and I, when we were driving up here, that it's hard to fight for something and work so hard for something that you don't really want. Because I tell people in politics, if you want it, you're already in the wrong spot. Because I felt like it was something I needed to do, and I felt that it was very important that I did do it. And coming out the other side of it, I have no regrets and there's no remorse, and I'm not upset about it. It's just been a fantastic experience, and one door closes, another door opens.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, I actually, when we were sitting there, my wife and I were sitting there, and I was thinking, most of these people got here before 7 o'clock. Yeah. And I was looking at my watch, and I said, it's getting close to midnight. And most of them are still here. Yeah. Right? And, while we had people that I felt were disrespectful, I don't have a problem with people booing. But I think that has to be in reaction to something that was said. Yeah. And I think some of the people we had were just being disruptive. Sure. Right? And you always have that, right?
Absolutely.
But there were a lot of really good people there.
No, there's some great people, and the state, again, is full of them. And these delegates work hard. You have to understand, these guys were probably getting 20 emails a day. I know some of them were getting 6 or 8 mailers in their mailbox every day. They're getting texts constantly. They're getting called constantly, and they do work hard. Again, there are some bad apples that spoil it for the most part, for the bunch, and that's not what we want, and that's not what we want to bring to the surface. What we want to talk about is the people who are there to effectuate their community, to have an effect on the future of their community and their state. And they tried hard, and they worked hard. And again, we go back to, I believe in the system. I told you this before. I'll tell you this again. I was the only candidate that didn't gather signatures because I trust those people. And that's why today I have no remorse. I'm not upset. And that's what's so great about it, is I can walk away and say, hey, it wasn't my time, and these people had their day, and away we go.
We've done a lot of interviews, and have a lot of interviews on PoliticIt.com. I was actually surprised, honestly, at how many delegates actually seemed to know who I was. Right. Right. And how many people said, I went to your podcast to watch one of these interviews, and they said, I ended up watching them on almost all the candidates, right? Because they said, it was a nice way of getting to know people without editorial opinion, or without, just letting them make their case. Right. And I think people, the delegates seem to have wanted to do that. If they watch that many hours of interviews, that's a long time right there.
And they had a lot of candidates to go through too. I mean, when you look at the Senate race, we had 10. You look at Congressional District 3, I think there was 9, and the governor's race had 5. I mean, by the time you take 8 or 10 minutes for each one, you're spending a couple days at that point looking at stuff. So
and you got to hand it to that. My wife and I were both delegates, and so that was an interesting process. Heather's been a county delegate before, but not the state one. She's gone with me to the state convention before, but she listened to all the town halls. We went to every event they had, at least a lot of them, right? Especially the ones that were sponsored by the party. Yeah, you're right. People, and the other thing that was interesting is the mailers that came to our house. Yeah. I mean, most of them just went in the trash. Right. And you say, well, why didn't you look at them? Well, because because we already felt like we knew who those people were.
Sure.
Right? And, you know, those mailers, especially the negatives, I think they're probably effective in a general election.
Yeah.
Where people aren't as, you know, intent on finding out about people.
Right. No, but we have a problem in this state, and this is a true problem with our elections, and it's nothing to do with our elections, it's to do with the voters. Voters in this state oftentimes spend more time deciding between Coke and Pepsi than who to vote for. And we need if we had educated voter base, man, can you imagine how good our governance would be? Like if they actually sat down and researched even a half hour on each candidate that's going to show up on the primary, how much different would our elections be? How much different would our state be if they took 10 minutes, 15 minutes, instead of going off of whose name's the biggest, who sent them the most mailers, who spent the most money. We could have some great things, and that is a big concern I have with the state and with our voter base and in our country as a whole. We take it for granted what we have in this country. We take it for granted what we have in this state, and I hope that voters will start to change. I hope it's starting to hurt enough. That they're actually
the rhetoric right now in the papers are that, you know, this is just a whole group of, you know, only 4,000 people. 4,000's a lot for a sample. None of those polls they're doing have 4,000.
No poll has more than 1,000.
Right. Yeah, and so you say, are those 4,000 representative? Well, every one of them had to go with their neighbors and get elected.
Sure.
Does that mean it works perfectly?
No. Does the system have its problems? Yes. Right now, the problem is we have the worst of both worlds because we have the signatures at the high end on the one side and you've got the convention system on the other side. And some of these candidates who gather signatures don't push for people to show up at caucus night. So their people don't show up to caucus night. Well, then they've got a problem when it comes to convention because they don't have anybody there that are going to support them. And so it's a tough system we've got right now. It's time for everybody to get together and look at what the future looks like, because changes do need to be made on both ends. But this is a great system, and we don't want to lose it because, again, like you said, these people are educated. For the most part, yeah, there are some people who just show up to vote for the person who they want to vote for, and that's not what it's meant to be about. But as a whole, you're seeing these people show up. You're seeing them get educated. And hopefully it continues to exist, but hopefully we breed competition for convention and for caucus night so that we can have, if that's what they want, you know, if they want more representation, then push people to go to caucus night. Have them fight for those seats as state delegates.
You know, I thought Rob Axon did a really good job, especially setting the stage on, you know, when he said up front, he said, you know, we're not bothered if you boo people.
Yeah.
But if you disrupt the meeting, then you're affecting everybody else.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw the post that I posted prior to convention, and I said the same thing. I said, guys.
So yeah, I saw that one, and I thought you did a really good job with it. Why don't you just outline kind of what you said in there?
Yeah. So basically, what I was saying, you know, nobody disagrees with the governor more than I do. Disagree better disagree, whatever it is. He and I don't disagree. We disagree on a lot of things, and I've made that very clear at this point. But I just said, you know what? Show some respect, because again, show some respect for the office if that's what it is, but don't boo, because it makes us look like children, and nobody likes it. Show your dismay, give him a few seconds, but then to disrupt the meeting, let him finish.
Yeah.
Don't make him a martyr, because it's exactly what happened. What I said in that post prior to convention is exactly what happened. What do? They go to the media, they start crying and whining that everybody's picking on them, that the delegates are, and they're going to use it as ammo to take it away, and that's exactly what they've done. And I just said, guys, show some respect. Yes, you may disagree with him. If nothing else, be quiet. Turn your back, walk out, whatever it is.
You know, there was a survey that was done by this policy project that came out. I saw it in KSL, right? But I was reading through that, and in that survey, it basically said that 60% in this survey were disappointed
in the direction of the state.
In the direction of the state, right? Well, could that explain the I mean, because there was a anti-incumbent kind of feeling that you got through there.
I think people in general are just upset, no offense, with politicians. Like, they feel at every level. There are some good ones. You do a fantastic job, but there's some who don't. And people feel right now that the politicians are not looking out for their best interests, whether it's on a state level or a national level. A lot of times that national stuff trickles down to the state level, and there's not a lot we can do about it. But people are upset. They want to see change, and they want it now. I mean, when I was running, my biggest thing that I continue to say, and you heard me say it 1,000 times, I'm concerned about the quality of leadership and the direction of our state. That was my pitch the entire time. A day after the convention comes out, 60% of Utahns are disappointed in the direction of their state.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty big.
Yeah.
You know, and one of the observations I made that I thought was interesting is, you know, Mike Schultz, for instance. I mean, he was the House sponsor on the flag,
sure,
right? And people were upset about that.
Yeah.
And you know, I remember him getting booed, right? But you know, he fully engaged.
Sure.
He was at every event that I saw for his area, right?
Yeah.
All the candidate events. He talked to all the delegates. He actually made his case. And at convention, he's over 70%.
Sure.
Right?
Exactly. But that's what people want. They want you to engage. But when you withdraw, they want blood. And that's what they felt right now. As long as they feel they're being heard. Sometimes you don't have to agree with them. You don't have to say, you know what, I totally agree, I support that, I made the wrong decisions. That's not what they want to hear. They want to be heard. They want you to listen to them. They want you to hear them out. Man, that eases the tension so quickly. And that's something Schultz does fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
Here's why I made this decision. I did it. Yes, let's talk about it. At the end of the day, again.
And then he talked about all the other things
Yep.
that he's done, right?
Exactly.
And I thought, you know, I mean, he just went to work.
He did. Right. And that's what people want to see. You know, and I'm going to use this as an example. Look at Celeste Malloy. Whether you support her or not, that's besides the point. I watched one of the Washington County the day after she made I totally disagreed with her vote on the omnibus. I was like, this is terrible. Don't do it. I think it's horrendous. She voted for it. She got her stripes for it. But I watched her get raked over the coals for it. And you know what she did the next day? She showed up. She took her booze in Washington County, but she got up on the stage and said, here's why I did what I did. I totally disagreed with her. But she got up and owned it. And you watch that crowd turn. Again, support her, don't support her, whatever. You had to have some respect for her in that minute because she got up on the stage and she took what she had coming and she said, here's why I did it. And by the end of the meeting, it was one of the most fascinating political turns I've ever seen in person. And again, people just want to be heard.
Well, we're going to take a break, but when we come back, in fact, I want to talk about your speech
Sure.
at the convention because I was sitting there just with my jaw open saying, oh, Carson, man.
It's made the rounds.
Yeah. So let's talk about it when we come back.
You bet.
In fact, we'll play it during the break.
Okay.
And then we'll come back and talk about it.
You bet.
Okay. We'll be right back.
My name is Carson Jorgensen, and I'm running for governor. I serve as chairman of the Utah Republican Party, so a lot of you know me, and I know you. And there's nobody I trust more with Utah's future. That's why I'm the only candidate in this race that never even filed to gather signatures. I'm running because of the quality of leadership and the direction of our state and the fact that we seem to drift a little bit more blue each year. Can anyone tell me a single place in this country where life is better because Democrats are in charge? Then why disagree better when we know what works? Red works better than blue. Conservative works better than liberal. So why wander down the middle of the road? Don't vote for me if you want to disagree better. vote for me if you know we better disagree. You know, I'm a pretty nice guy, but that all changes the minute my daughters are threatened. And disagreeing better with Joe Biden and the Democrats, going along to get along, and ignoring the generational damage that Joe Biden has done to this country, that is a threat to my daughters. It's a threat to the border of this nation my daughters live in and the Constitution that protects their rights. It threatens their ability to ever afford a home or raise a family. And it's not just my daughters I'm worried about. You know, one day it hit me what disagree better really means. It means pretend to disagree. If you pretend to disagree, you can veto a bill to protect girls' sports. You pretend to disagree, but you state your pronouns. Pretend to disagree, but promote DEI till it's election year. If you pretend to disagree with the Democrats, you can double state spending and our dependence on the federal government just like that. Pretending to disagree lets you back sports stadiums for billionaires to get you big money from the abortion peddlers and the teachers' unions. You know why? You know why? Because pretending to disagree lets you pretend to be a conservative. I don't know about you, but I am done with that. We know what real Republican governors look like. DeSantis, Noem, Sanders. We know what real Republican governors do. Let me ask you this. Is anybody here ready for a real Republican governor? This governor is underwater with Republican voters, but who can beat him in a primary? If you have baggage going into this primary and you have to play defense, it's tough to win. I am the only Republican candidate who can play offense from day one. They'll try to attack me, but they've got nothing to work with. In a primary, I will have the resources and the endorsements to win. More than ever, Utah needs a clear, conservative direction and a commitment to head that way. We are done wandering down the middle of the road trying to please everybody. We don't need to apologize for disagreeing or back off our conservative values, and we don't need a pretend conservative as governor. I'm Carson Jorgensen. I'm a pretty nice guy, but when there's a threat to my family, and that includes all of you, that's when I run for governor. Thank you. We need your support today.
Welcome back to PoliticIt. Wow, quite a speech.
Thanks. We worked hard on it.
So tell me how a lot of that stuff. What were you thinking as you were working on that?
You know, what I was thinking is trying to put words to what many people had articulated to me across the state. They're like, what is this Disagree Better initiative? We don't know what it means. What does it even mean? Because a lot of people have said, Disagree Better means you just better not disagree with me. And we finally put it into words, and we had gone back and forth with some help, and we had finally put it to words that Disagree Better means you pretend to disagree. Because you don't. And then we went through the reasons why. I mean, that was really the punchline of the speech. Is, you pretend to disagree, but you veto a bill to protect girls' sports. You pretend to disagree, but you push DEI.
Just looking at this in hindsight now, do you think those were the major mistakes that Cox made?
Oh, 100%.
Because quite frankly, I felt like, and you mentioned this in your speech on the DEI, I felt like he helped push that over the top.
Oh, he did.
He really got engaged with it. It was
on
he did
his
a good
list
job.
of accomplishments for the first 100 days.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that he pushed it so hard the first 3 years and then absolutely ran away with it or from it. I had nothing to do with it. DEI is terrible. We're getting it out of it. No, you pushed that for 3 years. Now you get to own that. Like, do you not believe in it anymore? Let's have a conversation.
I think the first, having been the one that dropped the first bill, there were very few people on board at that time, right? I was like, I can't believe Johnson throws this stupid crap at us, right? But
you saw it coming.
Yes, and the next year though, when Katie was running the bill. I think Cox came to the realization that there was stuff that needed to be done.
Oh, sure.
And he got on board, and I think he helped push.
I mean, but it lives in infamy, his call into the radio show when the guy asked the question. And he says, hey, do you think that it's racist that the Jazz is offering scholarships to people, but you can't be white if you get them? And he says, I don't think that's racist. And a lot of people at that point drew the line. But the things I poke at and the things I bring to light are the things that bothered them the most. When I traveled the state from one end to the other, when I would hear criticisms of him, the two things I would hear more than ever is the pronouns and the vetoing the transgender bill. That was the deciding. A lot of people said, and I quote them, not me, they said, I was done with him the second I heard the pronouns. It's a huge, I'd say.
Well, that pretty much went viral across the country, right?
I was on Tucker Carlson talking about it.
Oh, that's right, you were.
And they were looking at the state of Utah saying, what is going on there? Like, is this what Republicans look like in one of the most conservative states in the country? I'm like, guys, this is, and I said it in the interview with Tucker. I said, if this is where they want to go, the Republican Party as a whole is not willing to follow them. So if he wants to go down that road, it's on him, not on me. And so we talked, again, I mentioned him in the speech. Doubling the state spending. I walked off the stage. I don't know if you know about this or heard it, but I walked off the back of the stage and two of the state senators got in my face. And they were very upset with what I had said. And they.
So do you think maybe that was the thing that made them the most upset, or what? Where do you think that came from?
I don't know, because it was an irrational response. It really was. Like, one of them was very red-faced and stepped into my face, and I was like, hey, tell me what I said that was not true. He said, you have been traveling the state lying about the governor. And I said, okay, I have been very careful about what I say because I want to always be sure that I am saying things that are true and that I am able to back up. So I went through the list. I said, did he state his pronouns? Did he veto the girls' sports bill? Did he push DEI? I mean, it's on his own paper. The governor put it out. It said accomplishment for the first 100 days. I said, did they double spending over the past 10 years? Did the governor add $8 billion to our budget in the last 3 years? Have we doubled our dependency on the federal government in the last 3 years? Those are the questions. I said, tell me something I said that wasn't true. Name one thing. He stormed off. Truth always comes to the top.
Yeah.
So, again, there was a mixed reaction to the speech, but I meant everything I said. And I feel that way. And if people want to change, it's time for a change.
So, what do you think is going to happen going forward? Now, what out of the convention, let's talk about a couple things that made you glad to be part of that convention system, and a couple that.
Sure. I mean, let's look at what we got now. I support Phil. I think he's better than what we've got with the governor. Again, I'll vote for Phil. That being said, I've had some concerns. I've made those concerns known. And just because the election's over doesn't mean those concerns, and I will help him however I can. But going forward, with the convention, you have to understand this. With the convention, when it comes to conservative principles, you're preaching to the choir. They are the choir. But to win a primary, you have to have more than just the choir. You need the people in the audience. And so it's time to branch out, because you can say things at the convention that's going to resonate with those people. But when you step outside, that audience is much broader. And you have to be able to appeal to those. And I'm hoping that they can do that.
Well, I've always felt like, and I, I'm a believer in the caucus system. I made it through the caucus system. It's interesting. When I was going for the nomination last time, I barely got over 40% and ended up winning.
Yeah.
Right. But, that convention was a little bit different, though, because of COVID and everything.
Sure.
Right. But I remember the governor came out in first place.
Yeah, sure. You look back
in that same convention.
You look back to 2020, and the governor was at 58%. So, has things changed since then, or has the governor changed since then? That's a question people need to ask themselves.
Well, and see, the other thing is you think about the convention system. If there had only been a primary, I think Greg Hughes would have won that
Yeah, it'd have been.
See,
or even John Huntsman. I mean, you had John Huntsman in that race too.
No. I mean against Celeste Malloy.
Oh, in the Celeste Malloy race, I was thinking the governor's race. No,
but that race, if there'd only been a primary, Greg Hughes is so much better known.
Oh,
right.
Sure.
But I remember we called Celeste right after that conference after that convention because I thought, here's a perfect example of how someone with no name recognition, right?
But that's what it's supposed to be about.
And no money, right? Comes out against a very well-known figure.
I mean, you look at what we did.
Former Speaker of the House, right?
Yeah, the governor, I believe, up to this,
and I think Wingman
$2 million.
Wednesday.
Yeah, Phil has spent probably close to $400,000, maybe a little more. We spent $43,000. We're right on their heels. Like we were within 3% of the governor.
You were 100 votes.
We were 100 votes shy, and that's what this has meant. I served as party chair. Everybody know that's a thankless and terrible job. I feel bad for Rob Axon for what he's doing.
And I think Rob did an excellent job.
He did a fantastic job. But with that, it's tough. And it's a tough lift for the party, but it is good. And there are a lot of things about it. Again, I don't want to abandon the system, but there are some things that we can change and that we should be looking to change in the future that can make it better, that we can make it better. But still, it is much better to have these people that are getting these calls from these candidates. You know how many I had that were like, this is my first time doing this, but
well, they raised hands during the thing. There were
I think
40%. 40%.
I think 40%.
First time delegates.
And so many of them came to me and said, had I gone on this is a very defining point of this. Had I gone on what I had read in their emails or on their mailers, I would have voted for this person. But after hearing them multiple times in multiple different situations, I was able to see who that person really was. That right there is the defining property of the caucus and convention system.
Yeah, very good. Well, we're out of time. Any parting thoughts?
No, just everybody get out and vote. Do your part. Again, I have made it very clear. My speech made it very clear how I feel about the current administration. Again, I've said it before, I support Phil. I think that we have an opportunity here to make a change and that our state could use a change. I ran because I thought it was the right thing to do. I still believe I did the right thing. And it doesn't always end up that way. But one other thing I'd leave with people is watch when you're trying to elect people, how bad they want it. If they want to be in politics, you got them in the wrong business, because the second they get in, they make decisions based on what it takes to keep their job.
Right. Very good. Thank you. Carson Jorgensen, nice to have you. We'll see you guys next week.